Welcome to the Burnout Recovery Podcast, a guiding resource dedicated to healthcare professionals on their journey to overcoming burnout. Spearheaded by Dr. Joe Braid, a certified professional coach and rehabilitation physician.
Hello and welcome back to the Burnout Recovery Podcast. For this extra bonus guest episode in May, I am delighted to welcome a good friend and a colleague, Dr. Susannah Ward, a rehab medicine physician who chairs the Royal Australasian College of Physician Member Health and Wellbeing Committee. And Susannah, you're absolutely a passionate advocate for physician wellness. So good to have you here.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me again. Nice to meet you to your listeners. I just want to say happy birthday. I gather it was your birthday on the weekend.
It was. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Well, you deserve all the love and joy, so I hope that you were spoiled.
Oh, thanks. It was a great weekend. Yeah, really lovely. Great to have you back. You are my first guest who's had 2 episodes on the pod, so delighted to have you here. And if we only lived a little bit closer, Orange to Newcastle, and there's a few hours between that, then I know we'd be catching up a heap more.
Yeah, we have a lot in common and I love working with you and I'm very excited for the retreat we're doing together at the end of the year.
Yes, absolutely. So stay tuned for more details on that. Susannah's going to be telling us all about that. Here's some of the other amazing things Susannah does. She combines her clinical expertise with mindfulness practices as the founder of Ataraxia Collective. Susannah hosts really innovative CPD retreats that blend professional development with evidence-based wellness activities. And it was last year, wasn't it, that you launched or you released your book, Mastering Real Wellness. And you're really working with healthcare systems to establish formal wellness leadership roles to address the critical issue of physician burnout.
Yeah, to be honest, I take one day at a time. And when something comes up and I think, yes, I can do that, I can help, then I will. But it's becoming quite a number of little hats that I'm involved in. But it's a wonderful, diverse career. And I feel like I'm able to find that balance between being a clinical physician and also passionate in the profession of improving the culture of medicine to being more supportive and nurturing.
Yeah, so great. I can totally relate to having multiple different hats on and the different roles that we have. So let's start off with reflections on a recent meeting. You let me know that you were, part of talking about the challenges that trainee medical officers face currently, and maybe what are some of the proposed changes for the future. It's so important that we can attract and retain our medical workforce. What's new on the block around this area, please?
Yeah, well, I mean, the challenges faced by trainee doctors has been an issue for years, decades, really. And I think I felt it at the time when I was a trainee, and no doubt you did too. And it's part of why we found ourselves working in this space. And it just seems to be getting more difficult. We all know that junior doctors are placed in rotations that are short. So they're constantly managing and dealing with uncertainty, change, new expectations, different people that often seconded without any choice in isolating environments, without supports of their friends and family. They really are glorified secretaries in many ways. They run the hospital without them. It's a nightmare, and they're ordering tests and investigations. But there's not actually much opportunity for them to potentially be connected to patients, which is a lot of the rewarding part of the job. There's now training pressures, getting into training programs, and a lot of JMOs feel they need to be doing PhDs and masters and in addition to the work. And the work itself is increasingly demanding, especially in New South Wales. Although it's not clear what the data is around the state, there is a workforce crisis, and people are doing more than one person's job. So a lot of doctors now come to work not feeling safe, where you're not sure if you're going to get the supervision, the support of a colleague. You're not sure if you're going to be able to pull off the job, let alone provide quality patient care, which we feel we can and should. And there's a lot of messaging that we must. So moral injuries increasing, I think, because people show up to work with good intentions and a whole lot of capacity, but they can't execute it because the demands exceed the resources. I think also the international medical graduates that are now supporting the workforce increasingly are in many ways trainees. And so understanding the huge challenges they face with coming into a whole new system, a whole new culture, English is their second language, often without a mentor or peer support. And it can be as little as a day or a week of training, and then that's it. So you could imagine the extreme stress those people feel in addition to what is already an incredibly stressful job.
Yeah.
And we're now seeing junior doctors and senior medical officers just saying, well, look, the future's burnout. Do I choose that for myself or do I jump ship? And that's where we're at. We're actually, the workforce is getting worse. So just little things like not getting paid your overtime, not being able to access leave because there's no cover. I don't know if you remember ever being told, oh, you can take that leave if you can find someone to cover your work. I mean, that's not okay. It's not the responsibility of the registrar to find someone to cover them in order to take their leave as per the award.
Yeah.
And then also things like bullying, discrimination, harassment. We know from the medical training surveys that are conducted through APRA each year and other, objective evidence that we have access through surveys that unfortunately rates of bullying, discrimination, harassment are still high, especially felt amongst trainees and international medical graduates. And there needs to be safe, anonymous reporting systems around that. So the reality is a lot of doctors, and especially the junior doctors, because they have a lot to lose, they have no autonomy, no authority, they're trying to get into training programs. They feel they need to jump through hoops to get a job. They're not going to be the person that speaks up, and they don't have the time for it. And it's not appropriate. So yeah, it's a really hard job to pull off. And I think they just are thinking, I've just got to get through. But for a lot of people now, they're like, well, maybe I won't. So it really is a lot of challenges. In the future, I think basically more positions will be filled by clinical nurse consultants. And I think there will continue to be less doctors in the system unless things dramatically change.
Yeah.
And that looks like things like paid positions for a chief medical wellness officer where they have a 0.5 FTE, they've got proper training, they've got the staff and resources they need to actually dive deep into these issues and address them, to engage trainees and other employees and say, what are the problems? What are your solutions?
Yeah.
Support them to, implement those solutions and be the glue between staff and the problems and leadership and executive. And so, they're on the board as a chief medical wellness officer, or maybe they're a director of wellbeing reporting to the executive director of medical services or something like that. But I think that's going to be basically, a standard for accreditation even. And I think that the government needs to get involved, the health ministers, and they need to hear what's worked and then just say, well, this is what all, states and districts will be doing. This is the standard. This is how we do things, and wellbeing becomes a part of the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Really good. That's fascinating to hear that the juniors think that burnout is the future sort of diagnosis, or it's not a diagnosable condition, but the outcome of pursuing my training.
Yeah, one of the things that came out from this meeting was that these junior doctors actually receive messaging from their peers and seniors when they come into paid practice that, oh my God, it's so bad. Oh my God, it's so hard. Or, so it's not, you don't walk into a job with a high vibe, it feels a bit grim that getting contact with doctors that are probably burnt out, that have lost hope, maybe working in complacency. And they're just thinking, oh my gosh, this is hard and it doesn't look like it's going to get better. And when you're young and you've got your career ahead of you, there's a lot you can do with your ticket. You don't have to be a clinical doctor in a hospital.
Sure.
You're aware of the Creative Careers in Medicine group, and a lot of people are doing a little bit of something and a little bit of clinical medicine and finding a balance. And maybe that's the future, is that there's not many full-time doctors anymore because it's so harrowing.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, one of the things that came out from the junior doctors at this meeting was that everyone is very negative about medicine. So that's really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. When you're with your experience as the chair of the RACP Member Health and Wellbeing Committee, what sort of interventions are you considering as a committee or implementing, I guess, within the college? And which ones have been sort of effective in maybe addressing or preventing physician burnout? Could these be implemented at a systemic level? What comes up there?
Yeah, I think the coolest part about chairing this committee is I've been able to meet amazing people working in this space. So the existing chief medical wellness officers and the directors of wellbeing, and just learning from them what's worked for them, what were the key interventions, and realizing that these things can be replicated everywhere. And a lot of these interventions are at a low cost value, but someone needs to do the legwork of setting it up and driving it. So I think the general theme of what I've heard from all of these amazing people, the key issues have to be workplace focused. So it's not around building resilience in doctors. And as much as I love yoga and mindfulness and all that beautiful stuff that helps me, burnout is an issue of the workplace.
Yes.
And so we need to look at the workplace, and we need to identify the hotspots and the drivers, and then design a strategy to manage all that as best you can over a period of time. And so things like paying for a chief medical wellness officer or someone to, focus on that rather than trying to do it in addition to clinical work and supervision, research and everything.
Which is so much the old norm, isn't it? Can you just add this to your portfolio? Can you just add this to your list of like 1.2 FTE that you're already doing? So yeah, great that that's being recognized there, and people have got access to courses which are often US based, aren't they, to upskill in?
I guess the gold standard is the Stanford Chief Medical Wellness Officer training, where you go on site for I think a week or so. There's also some free courses like the Director of Wellbeing course through the Stanford. And I think Bethan Richards, who is Australia's first Chief Medical Wellness Officer, she's been in that position since 2019. I think she's involved in creating an Australian one.
Oh, great.
To make it much more accessible and affordable for others.
Yeah.
And so learning from these people with what worked, one of the things that is really key for trainees is in WA, Dr. George Skander, who's the Executive Director of Medical Services over there. And I think that the Chief Officer of Transformational Change, he's just fantastic. And he spoke at this meeting and he shared the outcomes and the benefit of having this JMO manifesto, which was their pledge of what they're going to do for JMOs to not only improve recruitment, but retain them. And it was just things like having paid overtime. They have extra 2 doctors or something along the lines of that to be there to cover leave. So they're paid for extra. Yeah, that's what, like a floating doctor. They have anonymous reporting system online for bullying, discrimination, sexual harassment. They have more safe rostering hours so that people are not expected to be working, beyond a certain hours consistently. And then other directors of wellbeing have things like colleague care, which is a program where you can access peer support for adversity where you're matched. And it's something other than going to your manager or EAP. It's sort of like another person a clinician that you can go to talk. They have things like shout out programs where you can, I think it's maybe an app where you can just say this person did this amazing thing today, and you build that culture of like, reward and recognition. It's like an anti-burnout factor. It totally is relating to the workplace. This is gold. So good to hear this. Yeah. And then forums, once a year where the ELT come and they listen to people, one-on-one meetings between a chief medical wellness officer and certain, leaders or managers, and just starting to have lines of communication where the issues on the front line are relayed, to the executive team, and everyone's aware of what's going on. And I think that was the beautiful thing about this meeting the other day, was that we heard from JMOs, we heard from an IMG, we heard from some family, and the leadership were engaged. They were connected and the feelings were felt. And it's that connection that cultivates care. And that's what we need to drive change. So I'm really excited to see what comes of that. But yeah, there's a lot that can be done. And it's a lot of work, but there's people out there that have been in this place before and they're keen to help and support. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Dr. Bethan Richards has already done research on tools to measure well-being in staff. And that's a really key message too, is that you've got to measure well-being, burnout and things like that, because you can't solve problems if you don't know what they are.
Sure.
And you've got to have executive buy-in. So you've got to have leadership that's involved in the process. And what I see a pattern of is districts where the ELT are approachable and involved, the culture flourishes. So Dr. Scandal was saying that, trainees, when they have an issue, they might just even knock on his door and be like, George, I mean, how amazing. What a
really
culture. People really safe, just pick up. If you come to someone with an issue, it'll be dealt with without risk of your reputation or you being the black sheep. And that is what psychological safety is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And considered. And, when you think about, well, why would you leave a job? You'd leave a job because it's no good and it's not going to get better. And I think what we're dealing with, particularly in public health, is it's no good. And it's not going to be good for a long time, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on. So how do you get people to stay while it's no good?
Yes.
And so it's that engagement and empowering them to be part of positive change, because then they go, look, it's no good, but it's going to get better. And I know it's going to get better because I'm part of that better.
Yes.
And that is very protective of well-being and very preventative of burnout.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing all of those, real-time in-place strategies from, the connections you have and really what you've heard, recently and currently. And, that idea that we do have to hang in there and change is hard. And sometimes there's that discomfort that comes with that. And if the vision or if the plan, the goal is not too in the distance, and we can see within 3 to 6 months, there's already space for things to start shifting, or, that knock on the door, not analogy, but idea is, it is led by an executive leadership team who are approachable and listening. Yeah, for sure. I can see the change happening sooner. So this is a short podcast episode, and it's so great to hear about those points that we've just shared there, Susannah. I am so excited to be part of your upcoming Be Chill CPD retreat, continuing professional development. For those of you who aren't familiar with those letters together, Susannah, tell us about how this retreat at a beautiful location, Caves Beach, how that combines professional development with wellness activities like yoga and mindfulness. How did you develop this integrated approach? And in your retreats you've already held, what transformations have you witnessed in participants?
Yeah. Well, the idea originally came on a long car trip when I was stressed about CPD, and I was working in private practice without a department. So peer review and measuring outcomes was challenging. And I was just like, and I was seeing it as a stress and I was seeing it very tick box and almost like, oh God, am I going to have to fib my way through or just do this thing that kind of makes, and that's just such a shame. And I am very much into sort of self-coaching, self-help, and what I call human mastery. Through my more yoga and spiritual practice, I've learned a lot about self-awareness and acceptance and sort of leveraging my strengths and that growth mindset. And I feel like that's not really a part of medicine where it stands at the moment. We don't really get taught those skills in university. And I think having a retreat where you can connect with peers and, make friends and learn from each other and complete the CPD, but also hold a space that's really restorative and nurturing and provides time to reflect and build these skills is filling a really nice gap for doctors. So the ones that we've been hosting have been in Bowral, and they've done really well. And so I decided to sort of expand on them and make separate ones, because Be Well CPD is very much about self-care. And then Be Extraordinary, which has already sold out for the year, and I hope to do a bigger one next year, is very much about cultural safety and bias, But Be Chill is very much about stress management and burnout prevention. So they all encompass self-reflection as the sort of foundational skill that you're cultivating and practicing, along with skills practice for well-being, mindfulness, yoga. But they're sort of targeting certain aspects of skills a doctor needs, or a leader, anyone successful that wants to make the most of their life really need, in line with the APRA requirements. And you just see that the magic is through the connections that people make. I didn't really expect that, but it's probably why I keep doing it, because people arrive, some of them dysregulated, stressed out, whatever. They all leave lifted, lighter. There's high vibe energy. You know, they're inspired, they're connected, they're just so happy. And so I think, got to keep doing this.
Yes.
So is different because it's going to be on the beach, at Caves Beach. You're going to learn all about your drivers of stress, the ones that you can have control over, the ones that maybe you don't, and have a bit of skills practice around that. You're going to do 5 hours of peer review and complete or review your professional development plan. And then the audit will be around burnout prevention, which you will be our expert speaker on. So we're in great hands, and I can't wait.
So good. Oh, I'm thrilled. I love that you've owned this space, got your creativity in there, worked out a way that came from you and thinking, how can I do the CPD when I'm not part of a public hospital department, or maybe even a private department as well, as so many clinicians are really. We work in a lot of isolation around this vast country that we're in. I'm thrilled to be one of the lucky attendees then for Be Extraordinary. That is going to be amazing. So everybody, we will share the link for how you can find out more and get your spot for the Be Chill CPD retreat, which is October 24th to 26th of 2025. Would be great to see you there. So let's round this out. Looking ahead, how do you see the medical profession evolving in terms of prioritizing physician well-being? And what role do you hope the Ataraxia Collective, that's Susannah's business, will play in that future?
I think the code of conduct needs to change. When you read the code, it says that doctors have to place the patients ahead of their own well-being, essentially. I think that's really old-fashioned, and it's holding us back. Medico-legally, it's holding us back, and it affects doctors, you know, maybe subconsciously even in their own choices around boundaries and self-care. So I think we just need to go with all the other careers that, you know, speak to this, like the flight attendees, the pilots. You have to look after your well-being first, right? And if that's in the code, it's really reinforcing that culture, and it's giving doctors a lot of reassurance that it's okay. Because at the moment, people are working to the detriment of their own safety and, of course, well-being. So I think that it's going to be a whole culture change. And then I think that things like the Chief Medical Wellness Officer will just be standard for all major teaching hospitals, or at least each state and district. And I think, doctors will work increasingly part-time with other creative outlets or other side gigs, because I think it will continue to be hard to work. I think more nurse practitioners and international medical graduates will fill the gaps, and we need to absolutely make sure that we're supporting them as well. And I think, generally speaking, the culture of medicine will be increasingly aligned with well-being and more supportive and nurturing, because at the end of the day, our softness is our superpower. And I think what medicine needs is more healing. And in order to connect and, you know, be part of a healing process for our patients, we need to be able to be present. We need to actively listen. And we need to feel each other. And it's impossible to do that when your surroundings are unsafe and you're working in fight-flight mode, or even total, you know, dorsal freeze. So we need to work on the safety conditions, the workforce, get all that workplace stress more managed and controlled and supervised, and then come back to what the heart of medicine is about, which is human connection and holding space for each other, and just allowing patients to be aware of the facts and together make informed choices.
Yeah. So love that. Softness is your superpower. I think that's a great line. I've never heard that one before. And yeah, I can see how there is so much caring within our profession, often very outward caring. And also that compassionate approach, self-compassionate approach as well, of how we're checking in on ourselves and caring for ourselves too.
Yeah. And I think doctors struggle with that because they do have blind spots, people pleasing, external doing, addiction, and self-compassion is a skill. And it's a skill that you need to learn, practice, and then develop over time. So doctors just need to see it that way. When struggles and challenges come to you or moments of pain, you can just use that self-compassion technique of going, this is a moment of pain for me. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. What's something kind I could do for myself? Maybe drink some water, take a little time out, and just remember that all humans have this pain and that moment will pass, rather than see it as a character flaw or a weakness or a failing as a doctor. So self-compassion is a muscle to be strengthened and built time.
Love it. Love it. So great to have you on again. Thank you for everything you've shared. I'm really inspired by what you've been a part of and been in the room, hearing about and the progress that lies ahead, because well-being has to be a part of healthcare and medicine and care for the staff, which flows on, of course, to the patients as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's a non-negotiable. That's how we do things here in healthcare. It's a profession of caring. And well-being is our foundation.
Absolutely love that. I'll catch up with you again before too long, Susannah. So lovely to see you today. Thanks for your time on the podcast. Cheers.
Bye now.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. Schedule a 60-minute power hour with me and leave with relief, decisions made, and clear next steps. Or send me an email for a speaking inquiry. All information is available at drjobraid.com with links in the show notes.